Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with another P.U.N.K deck. This time I've included the K9 engine. Not just Izuna and Lupus, but a full K9 engine. We're going to be going first against Raziel Mitsurugi here, a game that's going to pretty well show off just how these engines can play well together. Although they don't have any clean bridges between the two, it's really easy to open both a P.U.N.K and a K9 starter, and opening multiple engines, especially when one is as flexible as K9, is always good. Also, it's important to note that P.U.N.K does actually have a level 5 monster, Deer Note, and it's not even bad to play multiple copies. I'll show the deck list at the end of the video, but usually I'd only play one Deer Note. However, in this build I'm playing two, which again is inherently not that bad, because some P.U.N.K builds even played two Deer Note before K9 came out, as a way of making sure that Deer Note stayed in the deck and that you were able to always have it live off the Rising Carp, as we see here. Now, it's worth noting that if you use Deer Note's effect to revive from the graveyard, you cannot special summon Deer Note for the rest of the turn. So now I can no longer use Case in order to add Izuna, or not Izuna, Joko rather, and then also summon the Deer Note. However, that's not really going to be that big of a deal, as you're going to see here in a moment. For this first part of the combo line, I'm just doing all P.U.N.K stuff, and in previous engines, or previous builds rather, I used the Fiendsmith engine instead, and in a lot of previous builds, what I would do here is I would link these into Moon, two of my leftover P.U.N.K bodies, and then pivot into Fiendsmith, which is still not a bad option at all. But here what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make SP Little Knight. And since I got that Izuna off the draws earlier, now I can activate Case for Joko because I have a level 5 I can special summon. Although, again, I could have used Case earlier and just special summon Joko with the Deer Note in hand, and that also would have been fine. Even if I didn't draw into Izuna. But now we can use Izuna to dump Lupus for a follow-up play. We have the Nosh Knight. And we can use Nosh Knight to not only, of course, summon out the C104, but that'll let us pop a Case for K9. You might be thinking to yourself that we don't have the ability to really use the Force Release, though, because we don't have Ripper. But that's going to change here in a moment. First, let's make the number C104 Umbral Horror Masquerade. We're going to use the effect, like I said, Destroy Case, Case F in order to set Force Release. And now, in order to make room for the Ripper, I'm actually going to synchro the Sharakusai and Rising Carp into the Jurashin. Now, normally what you would do is you would actually leave these two on your field going into your opponent's turn, because the Sharakusai can quick synchro summon during your opponent's turn, and then you can go into the Amazing Dragon and start bouncing cards on their board. However, if you need space to keep comboing like I do here, you can always just make Jurashin instead, which won't get multiple bounces, but is still a board wipe for either face-up monsters or spell or trap cards, which is about as good. Now I have room to go Lantern, revive Joko. Lantern can add a Case for K9 for follow-up. And then now we can make Ripper and get even more searches off the Ripper as well. So while P.U.N.K and K9 don't necessarily have clean bridges between them, as you can see, it's still really easy to end your turn with both engines online, because if you open your P.U.N.K stuff, then you can get a lot of draws off the field spell, which will likely draw you into K9 plays if you didn't already open them. Now here they're going to go Habakiri for Murakumo. I'm going to gain some life points off the Jurashin. They're going to try to chain block the Murakumo board wipe with the Habakiri search, but I can not only use Ripper to negate the Habakiri, but we actually search the Dangerous Gabu as part of our combo line, this P.U.N.K trap card, which means I can still negate the Murakumo board wipe even if it's not on the same chain link. Or not, I mean, it is on the same chain link, but even if it is being chain blocked is what I meant to say. So yeah, at this point, after negating the Murakumo board wipe, I'm just going to go Force Release to not only pop the Murakumo, but also get the Werewolf online. That way I get the Hand Rip for their next effect, and my opponent, realizing they can't play through the Hand Rip, plus the two monster negates, as well as a board wipe and an SP that I have online, they're going to concede right here. So that is again going to be a lot of the power of this deck. While you don't have the bridges between your engines inherently, you get enough searching and drawing between each engine that's really easy to, if not open with one, draw into the other. Let's show off some more gameplay here. How about a going second game, this time against Malice, a deck I haven't faced in quite some time, even though I do think it is still quite solid. Alright, so we are going to be going second for this game. Opening a couple of hand traps that are pretty good for us here. The Droll plus the Nibiru. Also, again, we have both P.U.N.K and K9 plays here. Opponent's going to lead with Shotgun Parulia on my turn. I see a lot of opponents doing this nowadays on their turn 1. I don't know if it's correct yet or not. I think it's really hand dependent. I understand the idea is, of course, to Shotgun the Parulia in case your opponent has Izuna. But you're also making Izuna live by doing that. Again, I think it's really hand dependent. Alright, I'm going to Nibiru pretty early here into Splash Mage plus Dormouse. I'm fine doing that, even though I'm giving them a draw off Parulia, because I've drawn Lockbird as well. And I know that a lot of the follow-ups that Malice would likely have would be through, like, the backup Ignister, which obviously needs to search in order to actually make plays. Plus, with Splash Mage gone, I feel really comfortable dropping the Nibiru. Alright, I'm going to lead with Sharakusai, normal summoning, and activating Diffuse with the Wagon in hand, making the Rising Carp to exactly do this. Bait out an opponent's hand trap. So, if you don't open Izuna, you'll often open a case for K9, and like any K9 deck, if you get hand trapped, you can always just grab Izuna, and then start making your plays with her. Here we can go for Izuna effect, dump the Lupus, we're going to revive the Lupus here. And thanks to the case for K9 attack buff, it's actually going to be relatively easy to find lethal here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the Ripper, and now we can activate Ripper in order to add the Lantern. And then once we summon Lantern plus whatever it's grabbing from the graveyard in attack mode, that'll be far more than enough damage to wipe our opponent out here. The classic K9 OTK. I understand, yeah, a lot of people think that K9 is a really frustrating deck to play against, and I completely understand it, because a lot of the time it feels like you get punished for getting hand trapped. But I think that's also another element of surprise that this build in particular really has going for it, because a lot of people aren't expecting K9 with P.U.N.K. So a lot of games, I'll do exactly what you saw here. I'll lead with my P.U.N.K plays, baiting out their hand traps, only to then go Izuna or case for Izuna from hand, and then full combo anyway. Alright, let's show off this next duel here. Alright, this one's going to be against Azamina White Forest. We are going to be going first for this one here. I'll show you another example kind of combo line. Yeah, here, I mean, again, just classic example of a hand here. We have Ogre Dance to start P.U.N.K plays, and we have both Izuna and Case on top of that. So I'm going to go Ogre Dance for P.U.N.K. Normal summon Xayamine, activate Xayamine. They're going to throw out the Ash Blossom here. However, what I can do in this scenario is I can actually still make some amount of P.U.N.K plays using my K9 cards because I have a tuner left on my field. First, I'm going to go Izuna for Lupus, and I'm actually going to make Ripper before I start doing that, though, just to make sure I have some more protection against further hand traps from our opponent. Of course, we also get to go Ripper in order to add the Jokul, and we can set the Force Release because they used the Ash Blossom earlier. Now I'm going to go Case for Naroi, and that way I can go Jokul effect to special summon Naroi, and then now I can not only use Jokul to add Lantern, but we're going to use Naroi effect, send Case, and look at their hand. It went by really quickly, sorry about that. It was Elzat White Forest, Elzat Azamina, Crossout Designator, and Forbidden Droplet. The Forbidden Droplet is a little bit scary, but given that they're on White Forest, and specifically Elzat requiring another spell or trap card is going to be their only starter, I feel pretty confident I can set up more disruptions than the Droplet can handle. So now that I've done that, I'm going to pivot back into some synchro plays. I'm going to tune the Xayamine with the Naroi in order to make the Jam Dragon Drive. Now, at this point, I had actually forgotten to include the Ghost Ogre in my deck. Otherwise, I definitely would have added that off the Jam Dragon Drive here instead of a follow-up Xayamine. That was a deck building misplay on my part. Anyway, now we can go Lantern in order to revive the Lupus. We're going to overlay the two of these for the Nosh Knight. I made another misplay here, by the way. I should have done Jokul plus Lantern into Nosh Knight, and then I could have attached Lupus here, and then that would have given the number 104 Umbral Horror some target protection. But to be honest, that also doesn't really matter in this scenario in particular, because I've looked at their hand and I know they don't have targeting effects in hand, because Droplet does not target. So, to be fair, in this scenario, I got a little bit lazy because I could afford to, but yeah, I should have kept the Lupus as a material if I didn't know what was in their hand. But yeah, even on top of the K9 inboard here, we are also able to have the P.U.N.K Jam Fever, as well as an extra negate through the dangerous Gabu. So honestly, between the Gabu and the Force Release, that alone makes me feel confident that I can play through our opponent's Forbidden Droplet. But like I said, the LZ's going to require them to send a spell or trap card already, and we can chain Ripper to try to negate that. And yeah, now they can drop it, but they can only send 2 cards, meaning that they have to negate Ripper plus one of my other monster effects, making the other monster effect that negates the Umbral Horror, in this case, that'll be online, on top of the Force Release and the dangerous Gabu that I have face down. Yeah, I'm just going to use Gabu against the Sylvie here, and at this point my opponent's going to concede shortly. But if they hadn't conceded here, my next action before they were able to Synchro Summon would have been to then activate Force Release on Ripper, popping Sylvie, going for a Werewolf, leaving them with only the LZ on the field and nothing else. Alright, one last duel to show off, and then we'll show you the deck list. Okay, this one will be a bit brief, just a one-turn duel, but it'll show us pushing through hand traps and really highlight just how... See, this is the thing that I've said a lot about Yummy, but I'm finding it true to be a lot of decks, including ones like this here. How well you can play through hand traps based on having multiple engines, right? So here we're going to go for the E-Telly. Our opponent's going to Ash Blossom it, but as you can see, I not only have Case in hand, but also other P.U.N.K plays as well. But I am going to go for Case for K9 first, grabbing the Izuna here. I wanted to see if they had a hand trap ready for the Izuna, slash Lupus, like a Ghost Spell or something, and sure enough, it ends up being an Effect Veiler. However, thanks to what's in our hand here, that's actually going to be completely fine. We can activate the Foxy Tune. I'm going to send away the Force Release, summoning out Xayamine, making sure we activate the field spell before we use the effect. That way we not only get the Rising Scale search, but I can also draw a card here as well. We're going to activate Rising Scale, banishing Foxy Tune in order to summon. We're going to activate it in order to summon Sharkusai from deck, which we'll then use to fuse with the Xayamine in order to make the Rising Carp. Now we can activate the Jam Extreme Field spell to get another draw. Gotta chain block that with the Xayamine effect. Draws here weren't great, but I mean, I don't know, it's better than nothing. Okay, so here I'm going to go for the Wagon plus Deer Note, but rather than sync for the level 8, I'm actually going to use the Deer Note plus my leftover Izuna to make Ripper and pivot back into K9 plays. Now I can use Ripper in order to add Lantern and even set the Force Release from my graveyard. That's why I sent it earlier. Now I can use Lantern to revive Izuna. Lantern grabs a follow-up Case, and then now we can use Lantern plus Izuna. And we can make the Nosh Knight and set that up as well. You could, if you wanted to, take out more of the K9 extra deck stuff and put in more P.U.N.K extra deck stuff. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the deck building section, or the deck breakdown section rather. But I typically like having more K9 stuff because K9 is often going to be your follow-up engine through a hand trap or something, right? Alright, so now that I have the K9 setup of Ripper, Umbral Horror plus Force Release, I can use my leftover 3 plus 8 to make the Jiraishin. I'm going to normal summon Madam Spider, adding Dangerous Gabu. Now I can use the field spell effect to special the extra Xayamine in hand, and I was going to use the Madam Spider plus Xayamine to make Little Knight, then set Gabu and pass. So our end board, through 2 hand traps that resolved, by the way, was going to be Little Knight, Ripper, Force Release, Umbral Horror, Jiraishin, and Gabu. That's 7 points of disruption. It's actually 8 if you count the Werewolf hand rip, and 9 if you want to count the Umbral Horror hand rip. 9 points of disruption after having already played through 2 hand traps that resolved. Absolutely insane. I love this variant. Let me show you the deck list. Okay, so here is my list for K9 P.U.N.K. 44 cards is quite a bit more than I typically like to play, especially for a deck that's got multiple engines. With things like Snake Eye Yummy, I really like keeping it down to 40, so that way you have the maximum opportunity to draw into both engines and play through hand traps that much better. In that regard, I am kind of considering cutting down on like Foxy Tunes, or maybe even going down to like one Ogre Dance as well. I will admit that even stuff like Madam Spider and Gabu is pretty optional. You could get this down to 40 if you really wanted to, but I also wanted to, for my initial build of this, test it with the maximum amount of engine as possible. And I actually don't mind playing 44 here to fit all this stuff. We do have a lot of cards we don't necessarily want to draw. Stuff like Lupus and Wagon and the Gabu and the Force Release and the Field Spell. I guess Field Spell's not really that bad to draw, but a lot of this stuff that's really, really searchable, you know, we'd prefer not to see in our opening hand. And if you have a lot of cards in your deck that are part of your engine, but you don't want to open with them, then it's not a bad idea to play, you know, 41 to 45, a little bit over 40, to kind of help balance that out a little bit. Like I said, we're on 2 Deer Note, which normally for a lot of other Punk builds, I've only been on 1, but I've also played 2 Deer Note with Punk in the past, even before K9 came out. Because again, the Rising Carp can only, I mean, you can summon monsters from the hand or deck, but obviously you'd rather summon from the deck. And in that regard, you really want to have the Deer Note in there to be able to get it out. Plus, if you open the Deer Note, then a lot of the time you're going to need to reveal it in order to actually make use of it, or reveal another Punk monster in hand. And that also requires you to send the other Punk monster to the graveyard. That's why opening it with only 1 copy isn't really that great. But 2 is fine here, again, not only to keep 1 in the deck for Rising Carp, something you want to do anyway, but now if we do open one of our 2 Deer Note, that's totally fine, because we have K9 stuff that we can use, particularly the Jokel, in order to make use of it. One thing I think I will actually do right now that I'm pretty confident in is dropping a Foxy Tune for a case. I mean, we saw in those games, right, that I showed, just how good it is to open case for K9 plus one of your Punk starters. So being able to go case for Izuna after your Zamine or E-Telly or Rising Carp or whatever gets negated is so, so powerful. Another lot of the reason why we're on 44 is to make room for hand traps. I think I have 13 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 counting the Izunas, which I do definitely count Izuna as a hand trap. The ability to make Nosh Knight or Ripper or Valen on the opponent's turn is obviously really, really powerful, and something that's really, really important to have. Now for the extra deck, as mentioned, I leaned more towards the K9 stuff, right? But you could change up the extra deck to be more of a Punk deck. You could take out 104, C104, you know, Nosh Knight and CXC's Nosh Knight. That alone would free up 4 extra deck slots to play things like more level 8 synchros like Dragite or the Tenyi level 8 synchro. You could play more Link monsters potentially that are good to go into like generic ones. You could even, if you really wanted to, drop the Nosh Knight engine and make some more room in the main deck for a Fiendsmith engine. K9 Fiendsmith Punk. Ooh, and now that I say that out loud, I actually kind of want to try that, but of course, we'd have to either cut a lot more from the main deck or just commit to playing closer to 50 cards. I think I'd be more inclined to do the former rather than the latter. Either way, I think that these 2 archetypes not only have a surprising amount of synergy through the Deer Note, but even if they don't have that inherent ability to go from one combo line to the other by themselves, you're going to often be opening multiple starters anyway, and these decks that play multiple engines are always going to have that advantage through playing hand traps when they do have the ability to have multiple starters and multiple combo lines. Alright, I think that's everything I have to say about this deck for now. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments below, but for the time being, that's going to go ahead and do it. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Super appreciate ya. We're going to move on now towards our outro so we can thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.